Hello, welcome to episode 62 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1,000 movies you must see before you die. The Breakfast Club, 1985, 31 years ago now. Classic 80s film. I haven't seen it in years. Yeah, at least 7 years. I mean, it's one of those films I think I've only seen maybe 2 times, but I feel like I've seen it a lot more.
Yeah.
Because when we just watched it, like literally 15 minutes ago, I'd forgotten most of what. Oh, I know what happens in the film. I know where it ends up and everything. But like the middle of the film, before the opening and the ending, I kind of had really forgotten about, just images and flashes. So
I remember a lot of it.
I mean, what I mean is, I feel like it would be one of those films where we watch it and I'd be finishing the lines in my head, but I pretty much none of it kind of came back to me. So it's kind of cool. I really enjoyed watching it again. Did you? So we have the 5 kids who go in for detention on a Saturday, and it's almost a bit too...
Well, 2 kids and 3 grown-ups.
2 kids and 3 grown-ups. Kind of looked up the ages of all the actors, the 5 principal actors, and I think it ranged from 26 to 23 and then 17. Yeah, so some of them were age appropriate, some of them were not.
Claire
but
and
that's...
Brian were 17, John is 26, and...
Alison was 23, and then Andrew
right.
was 23, right? So
they don't say his name that much.
Yeah, they don't, or even hers. I only knew her name because it would say for like the first half of the film, the dark-haired girl Alison doesn't really speak, but the subtitles would say Alison does this or whatever, or bites her nails. Yeah. Right. So it's a pretty simple setup, and it's almost a bit too broad because they're 5 completely different kids from completely different social circles. Like, who would have thought that 5 kids were so different? But the thing is, you have a guy like John Hughes writing the film and directing the film, and that is what makes it great. Well, the actors too, obviously, but John Hughes is he's just the man. He made films like this, 16 Candles, which I haven't seen actually. I've never seen 16 Candles, but Uncle Buck, classic. Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, amazing. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which we'll talk about at some point because that is in the book, rightfully so. And he wrote films like Home Alone. Just such a great comedy writer director, and the writing is great in this. The acting is great in it. I think it's really hard to fault the film. I think
Just one of those movies you gotta see,
Just jump into the end straight away. You don't have much to say about it, do you?
I don't know.
You don't know?
It feels like you've been there for a day with them in a way.
Yeah.
It's like amazing how short the movie really is, but it feels like it lasts for hours in a way.
Yeah, hour and a half, and it definitely feels longer than that. Not in a bad way. You just definitely feel like you've been there all day with them, like Connie just said.
Yeah. It's very natural. Some things are like, now that I see it with a more like judgmental
Adult.
Well, no, but I kind of I see a movie for a movie now.
Okay.
I look at the story and I look at the logic,
right,
or whatever, and some things in it, it's just like really.
There's 3 moments in the film that I think don't ring as true. The scene where Andrew is kind of dancing around in a room after he's smoked the joint, and he's just like, yeah, and the window breaks, the glass door breaks, and it's funny.
It just breaks because he screams.
It's funny, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those like, did that really happen? Is this just like a?
It's just as silly as the title exploding or crushing.
Yeah, there's a quote from David Bowie at the beginning, and it just explodes into glass shattering and stuff like that.
It's like amazing special effects.
A scene where they're running up and down the hallway, like it works, but it goes into like montage where it's like they're running around so many different hallways and stuff, and it seems staged like a music video as to opposed to an actual scene. And then later on, when they're all dancing at the end together, it was fun. I think it's a really fun scene to watch, but when you've got, the 3 guys there doing the little dance in sync across the thing, it doesn't suit the characters or the story that's been told.
They wouldn't do that.
But, I think...
At least 2 of them wouldn't.
I think the rest of the film is so damn good that you can kind of just let that slide, really, because...
Really? That's the only things?
Yeah, it's the only three moments I can think of that didn't seem to fit the rest of the film and were a bit more out of. They almost felt like dream sequences.
The thing that I reacted to in the end, you
What?
don't find that silly. Let's just say someone gets a makeover.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, the makeover's fine. Where the clothes came from, I do wonder, but just the reaction of that certain someone.
Yeah, I had no problem with the makeover at the end. I saw no problem with it or the reaction to it.
That I found silly.
Okay, so one of the girls gets a makeover at the end of the film. It makes her look a little bit different. So one of the guys suddenly finds her very attractive and is more interested in her, and Connie didn't like that. But to me, it is totally believable. That is what teenage kids are like. They are superficial like that. And no matter what went on throughout the film, where they all had this heart-to-heart and they got these feelings off their chest and all this kind of stuff, and maybe had a realization about their young adult life, they still would superficially be attracted to someone who looks more physically appealing to their eye. That it just would happen. You know, so I felt like it was true to the situation, as was most of the movie, except for those few little bits. But
Fine.
fine.
I just think it's silly.
Okay, I think it's silly.
It's like, hey guys, we need some more romance in this movie. Let's just hook some people up and yeah, and just call it a night.
Right, I suppose. Yeah, I mean,
That's the ending for me right there.
It might have been a bit more realistic if there was just the one pairing off at the end. I suppose it's an interesting film when you look at the cast, because I can't think of a film that is as iconic as The Breakfast Club. That all the actors in it, they kind of, I mean, that was it almost. I mean, that they probably would hate to hear someone saying that. I'm sure it drives them nuts, but name me a film that any of those 5 actors did after this that had more of a lasting impression than this film. I'm sure they've gone on and done, you know, maybe more better performances and stuff like that, but they're always going to be remembered for this one film. They were all fairly young, and it's quite an interesting thing where, you know, young actors and stuff, they have this hit movie, oh, this is great, you know. I'm sure at the time people were saying these kids are going to be amazing when they're older, like they're really going to be big stars. I'm not saying they're not big, well, they're not big stars. You know, they're still working, they're still making films, but whoever really talks about Judd Nelson anymore as a serious kind of actor, or, you know, any of them. And in fact, Ali Sheedy, who plays Allison in this film, was in X-Men this year, which was set in the 80s, you know, and she had a cameo as the school teacher, and it was kind of like, oh, Breakfast Club reference. See, that's, you know, she's in a film,
True.
and it's because of Breakfast Club, and it's not a bad thing, you know, because it is a film that is loved. This is the kind of film that a lot of people in the world would say that's my favourite film of all time. It's one of those films, I think. Certainly not for me, but it's one of those films that people just love. It's classic, it's iconic,
Yeah.
and it's interesting to me that all 5 of these great actors, because I thought they all did a phenomenal job in the film, they never really got bigger than this, and it's kind of interesting. But I like it when there's that kind of, you know, that one film. Even the was it not the principal, but the guy who's overseeing detention, you know, I don't think he ever really.
But he looks very familiar.
Yeah, he's been in loads of stuff, but he's more of a bit part player, you know, like, as far as I'm aware. I flicked through his filmography.
He's never a main character.
Well, he probably was, for sure, but not in a film that is, you know, maybe as known, I guess. I looked through his filmography, I couldn't really see any films that stood out. I might be wrong on that, anyone feel free to call bullshit on it, but I think his role, will always be his most famous role, be remembered as this one, you know, and he's great in it as well, just such a dick and such a, you know, and the writing from John Hughes, just brilliant. And I know one thing I should say before we finish the review is the scene when they're all sat down and they're talking it out, you know, it's the final kind of dramatic scene with some funny bits, but it's when you really sit down and kind of resolve everything and everyone gets to kind of get stuff off their chest. That's the scene that always stood out to me when I watched it. And it's really long. Like, it goes on for so long. Just, I mean, you have scenes where they're sat there and then they go somewhere else. But when the 5 of them are sat down, there's even a long shot of the camera just panning around all of them. It's about 2 minutes long. It's so long, but it still works because I think...
Do you mean the scene where the jock boy is talking? Because it does go behind a few pillars, and I'm just thinking maybe they cut it there.
No, you can tell it wasn't cut. You can still see the grain moving in a very seamless way. You know, it was clear they set that up as a tracking shot around all 5 of the characters, which I really liked. But I just think the scene, it struck me watching it today. Wow, this is like, it feels like a 20-minute scene. It isn't really, but so much goes on in that scene, and I just think it's the best part of the film. So, anyway, is it a film you must see before you die? It's an easy yes. You know. especially when it comes to 80s films, especially when it comes to teen films, you know.
Classic films.
You think teen film, you think The Breakfast Club. It's always going to come up, it's always going to be in the conversation, and it still holds up. It does. I love it.
Even with only 2 teenagers.
Yeah, even with only 2 teenagers, yeah, I mean, what's his name, Judd Nelson, he looks, you know, was he 26, you say?
Yeah.
26, so, you know, but it still works, I think. You can kind of get away with it, and, yeah, that's about it. Anything else you want to add?
Don't get me wrong about the few things that I just found like kind of unnecessary and
Yeah.
stuff. I really, really do love the movie.
Mhm.
It's great. It's just one of those movies, you know. Like you gotta love it.
Yeah.
And if you don't love it, then what's wrong with you? You know, even if there are bits in there that's like, oh come on, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of okay because it's an 80s movie. I don't know, maybe.
I don't know. I just think the rest of the film is so strong that the little moments like him
Yeah,
screaming and the glass
it's
door
really
breaking, which
strong.
are just ridiculous and it's kind of off-putting to me now watching it. I didn't remember that at the time, you know, when I was younger. Now I certainly thought that seemed out of place, but it's just so minor compared to how great the rest of the film is that you just let it slide, really. So.
And it could have been just something he fantasized.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like,
but
was it really real? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I still don't like it. I guess. Like they clearly would have seen that broken door and then he'd be in trouble. I guess it didn't really matter. But
Yeah, exactly.
whatever. So that is it. The Breakfast Club. Yes, from both of us, and that's about it. Thanks for watching.
Time for dinner.
Time for dinner for us, yeah. But no, the video is not over just yet. It's actually a week after we filmed that video, and I was ready to post it online. I literally about 30 minutes ago, I had it done, edited, finished, you know, complete, ready to go onto YouTube, and I thought, you know what, I've got time to just add a little extra thing onto the end of this, because I feel like after we watched it, we had just watched it, and Breakfast Club is definitely a film that stays with you. Now, it didn't stay with me as much as it did when I was a teenager, when I first watched it, and I was kind of the target audience, and I was feeling all that angst, all that kind of, everyone's against me, man, you know. I think teenagers, you know, that's the prime audience for this film, but you can enjoy it as an adult as well. But it stayed with me. But I was looking through some of the documentaries on Blu-ray and I found out some really interesting bits of trivia. Looked on IMDb, the trivia page was literally endless. I thought I was going to scroll forever. But you know, there's things I want to mention, but again, a lot of that trivia you can find out for yourself, or you already know it, and I don't want to just tack on a pointless bit of you know, trivia info at the end here, but two things I want to point out. One was that originally there was a 2.5 hour cut of this, and I think there's only one copy of it surviving, and John Hughes' widow is not giving it up, apparently, from what I've read. And there's so much stuff that they didn't include in the film, and I think it's perfect as it is, but I'd be so interested to see all the extra stuff, but it's never been released. I mean, there's like dream sequences, there's all sorts of like additional bits and pieces that kind of make other things make sense as well, and there's actually a bit in the Blu-ray on the documentary where you see a shot of Anthony Michael Hall's character sitting in the room where most of the film takes place in an astronaut suit, and I was thinking, what the when did that happen in the movie? And apparently it's a deleted scene where Allison is daydreaming and she sees herself as a vampire and him as an astronaut and all this, and so some pretty weird stuff, and I wonder if it would have made it a completely different movie, whether, you know, a 2.5 hour cut of this would be kind of flogging the horse a bit too much, or whether it would be just, you know, making it even better. It's just, I love kind of those kind of, not lost, well yeah, lost films, but also kind of lost cuts as well, and kind of what could have been, and I like having the choice sometimes, being able to see the different vision for it. Anyway, the song. How could we forget talking about the song? You think about The Breakfast Club, you think about the Simple Minds song, Don't Forget About Me. I mean, it's so synonymous with the film, unless you haven't seen the film, in which case, what's wrong with you, like Conor said earlier. Anytime you hear that song, you think about The Breakfast Club, and the iconic ending with the fist pump, you know, it's just classic 80s iconography. It's just, and I can't believe we forgot to mention that song, because it ties into the film so well. I love the intro to the film with just the shots of the empty school and the voiceover and the music, kind of the instrumental version playing over it and stuff, and setting up all the characters. Everyone is set up so well, and I think going back to kind of what we talked about last week, for me, or you know, about 10 minutes ago for you, I seem kind of not down on the film, but I seem to kind of be kind of looking down on it, saying, oh, the 5 characters who, you know, that they're all different and they all relate to each other by the end. You know, I say it like that, and it is kind of, you know, it has that film quality to it, where it wouldn't quite happen in real life. But, you know, I have to say that it is done so well, performed, written, you know, and everything, that that kind of convention of kind of putting these 5 very different characters together totally works, and it isn't one of those kind of groan-worthy things, I don't think. And I just feel like I was underselling it a bit, because watching the film I just thought, man, this is almost perfect. It's such a good film, it's so well done from start to finish, and I just wanted to kind of really get my kind of thoughts out on it a bit more in that bit. And I was also a bit I was put off a bit by Connie, because she was very tired when we filmed that review, and so she had very little to add to the film, to the review I should say, of the film. So I wanted to add a bit more of enthusiasm towards this at the end, and it's my series, I can add whenever I want onto this, so that's what I'm going to do, and I've done it before, so, and I'm sure I'll do it again, where I kind of feel like, I wish I should have mentioned that, and I have the opportunity to kind of add this onto the video before I post it. So yeah, and oh, and finally, yes, the major thing was that John Hughes said if there's one thing he regrets about the film, it's the glass door breaking. The scene that I was talking about that seemed out of place to me, so that's interesting, and it makes me wonder, like, well, why didn't he kind of have that maybe cut out for the, you know, the DVD release, which he was around for, you know? But then again, you know, it goes into that whole mindset of, is a film, as it's released theatrically, is that the cut that has to stay, or should the director have the ability to change it any way he sees fit over the you know, coming years and for the rest of his life, you know? George Lucas, or should he not, you know? A very interesting discussion, I think, but I don't know if the film, I mean, could you just cut out the glass breaking and just show him walking in, look, you know, strutting and stuff, and then you just cut? I don't know, maybe it would work, maybe the music isn't timed that well, I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to add in those quick few thoughts at the end, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
The reaction of that certain someone. We heard a boom.
Yes, we heard a boom.